This video is about a kayaking adventure by 4 young aid workers in Thailand. At the time we were based at Kohn Kaen, about 440 kilometres northeast of Bangkok. Just to the northwest of Kohn Kaen was Lake Ubol Ratana. This lake was fed by the Chi River. In order to get to the headwaters of the river, we had to travel by bus from Kohn Kaen to Phu Kradueng National Park, a trip of about 3 hours. We loaded the canoes onto the top of a public bus. These buses are normally very crowded. The passengers are in the main part of the bus, but all kinds of produce are kept on top of the bus, including animals. We tied the canoes down securely because it was a long trip. It is quite normal for Thai people to travel between cities on public buses. It is an inexpensive form of transport. The buses are normally quite crowded, but we as a group of foreigners were much taller and the seats were close together. It was quite uncomfortable. We stopped several times along the way to allow passengers to get on and off. There were always lots of hawkers selling food to the passengers in order to try and make some money. We asked the driver to stop near the village of Jae Kim, where the river passed under the road. We unloaded the canoes. This was 50 years ago, and the area was quite forested at that time. We unloaded the canoes at the bridge. They were made of a timber frame and covered with a canvas outer. This ensured that they were light to carry, but not very robust. And this was a problem, as we were later to find out. The bus departed. The conductor remained on the back ladder of the bus. This seemed to be a common practice, but also quite dangerous. It is time to introduce the 4 adventurers. On the left, in the blue shirt, is Garth Eyles from New Zealand. In the middle, in the red shirt, is Mangall, also from New Zealand. And the third guy is Barron from Canada, and of course yours truly, Shelton. Our adventure was about to start. We were a little nervous. We had no prior knowledge of this river and what we were about to face. Therefore, some quiet thought and ablutions were necessary before descending to the river. A new bridge was under construction. The river was quite swift flowing, and it was a nervous start. Norman in front and Garth behind got away first. The second canoe was still on the bank. We hadn't quite packed away all things, but we were soon in the river and paddling. After the initial intrepidation, the river seemed to settle and travelled through quite deep gorges in quite a remote area of Thailand. It was quite beautiful. The mountains soared above us, and we enjoyed being able to paddle in such a unique situation. The river seemed quite serene and safe to begin with. It was a very tranquil environment. We relaxed and enjoyed the pristine quietness of the forest. It was quite rugged. The river widened and deepened and slowed. We made good progress, but it seemed safe, and we relaxed. Perhaps too soon. The serenity could not last. It was not long before we encountered one of many logs across the river. We had to think about how to get the canoes across. In the end, it required lifting them across carefully to ensure not to damage the canoes or lose any contents. Serenity returned. The river once again became tranquil. It was enjoyable paddling. We were able to talk to each other as we made good progress down the river. Maybe the trip was going to be easier than we thought. That was a presumption which was not correct. We hit some rapids and our canoe went right over the top of a jagged rock which ripped a hole in the bottom of our boat about 1 metre long. We had to get all of the water out of the canoe and take it onto the bank for the night. We had no choice but to make camp. We found a spot on the river bank in the remote jungle of northeast Thailand. We had anticipated staying overnight and we had brought mosquito nettings because malaria is common in this part of the world. Barron was the engineer among us. He was competent and he repaired the canoe. He seemed happy with the result and we hoped it would be watertight tomorrow. It was a pretty rudimentary campsite. Nevertheless, we set up the mosquito nets, had dinner, was able to wash and got some sleep, ready for a restart in the following day. We were unable to put the canoes back into the river where we had the incident. It was just too rough, too many rocks. We had to carry the canoes past the rapids to find a part of the river where we could again paddle with some safety. It was a considerable distance and the descent into the river was quite steep. We were concerned about losing the canoes and maybe losing some gear. It wasn't long before we came across more obstacles in the form of logs across the river. This was quite a common occurrence. In this case, the stream had been constricted to quite a small channel. It was fast flowing and Garth almost got swept away. Norman got him onto the log, but he slipped. It was quite a dangerous moment. Finally, Norman managed to help Garth out of the river and he sat there relieved. Unfortunately, one of the canoes was again damaged. It hit a snag and we had quite a long rip. Mark had to fix us. There was no way we could continue paddling with the canoe in that state. By this time on the second day, we had travelled some distance down the river and villagers emerged from the jungle to watch the strange event. 4 foreigners mending 2 canoes. There were more logs to be negotiated. By this time we're getting quite adept at getting our canoes over or around logs. There are plenty of them. At last we found some rapids that weren't too dangerous and we could enjoy them. Mark and I went first. We got through safely. We set up our cameras to watch Norman and Garth come through. They also negotiated it safely. This is the fun of a wild river canoeing trip. We inevitably came across more rapids and more rocks. By this time we were out of the main jungle and there were many more villages about. They were very curious about these 4 foreigners and their 2 canoes. We had no chance of canoeing through this, and again it was another carry job. We parked our 2 canoes in a safe spot while we checked out the rapids and worked out how we were going to negotiate it. We came across some fishermen. They worked as a group. They had these big nets which they threw out simultaneously. We didn't stay to see if they caught fish, but I'm sure that they knew what they were doing. We had to again carry the canoes into a quieter part of the river. We're becoming more accustomed to this now. We were getting closer to the top end of the dam. The river slowed in its pace and we passed big bamboo rafts with people sleeping in their hammocks. It looked very comfortable. We had to do a lot of paddling. There was no longer any movement, any fast movement in the river. So it was just a matter of paddling, and it would have been another 20 kilometres down to the dam wall where we were to be picked up. As a group, we made an executive decision. We decided to hire this boat, put our canoes on board, and we were transported all the way down to the dam wall. Lazy, I know, but sensible in the end. The dam is very large, and we were due to be picked up. We made it to the dam wall, a great trip.